Want to know more? Go online at ucsd.tv. Get the complete broadcast schedule, in-depth program information, online video archives, and much more. You're watching UCSD TV, television unlike anything else. Stay tuned for Primetime Wednesday Science programming on UCSD TV.
Higher gasoline prices, dependence on foreign oil, and global warming. Biofuels have received considerable attention lately for some of these reasons as a homegrown solution to our dependence on fossil fuels. Of course, biofuels are not new. During the oil crisis in the 1970s, Brazil launched its sugarcane ethanol program. Now Brazil is the world's largest exporter of ethanol. However, it had about a 2-decade-long learning curve for its ethanol to become cost competitive with gasoline. So I think the lesson is that we really need to look at alternative fuels with an eye toward their long-term potential. So here in the US, we have a real sweet tooth. And we eat all of the sugar we produce rather than fermenting it into ethanol. Today, you'll hear about some other truly exciting, novel, and visionary approaches to the production of biofuels. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Art Ellis. He's UCSD's Vice Chancellor for Research. He's responsible for overseeing and facilitating UCSD's extensive research enterprise and the complex infrastructure that's required by a top-notch research institution. He will introduce today's session and moderate the question and answer period that follows. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ellis.
Thank you very much, Sherry, and good morning to all of you. I'd like to welcome you today on behalf of the University of California at San Diego, and I'd like to provide some context for today's panel discussion on biofuels. Energy, of course, is on almost everyone's mind, and as you know, California is a state that consumes a large fraction of our nation's fossil fuels. It has a large agricultural industry. It's a progressive leader in the development of new transportation technologies, and our state is environmentally conscious. An example of that, as you may know, is that Governor Schwarzenegger this past year boldly introduced the California Global Warming Solutions Act. And it says, quote, using market-based incentives, we will reduce carbon emissions to 1990 levels by the year 2020. That's a 25% reduction. And by 2050, we will reduce emissions to 80% below 1990 levels, unquote. As a public university, UC San Diego is committed to working with the state of California to achieve those goals. We think that biofuels research is particularly relevant for advancing new technologies that address global warming, environmental pollution, and alternative fuels. Here in San Diego, we also have a burgeoning biotechnology industry that is poised to make major contributions to biofuels-related technology. There are several elements that will be needed if we're to make progress in understanding and managing biofuels. One is interdisciplinarity. We need to draw on tools and expertise from across the traditional scientific and engineering disciplines. And we need to make use of new developments in interdisciplinary fields like nanotechnology, information technology, in addition to biotechnology. A second element is partnerships. You'll hear today that government, academia, and industry all need to be involved if we're to bring biofuels into the marketplace. And a third element is international collaborations. We increasingly work with colleagues from around the world to make progress in biofuels research. Today we have 4 excellent speakers who will inform our thinking about biofuels and whose work exemplifies these elements. Our first speaker will be Robert Katalica, Professor of Engineering Physics at UC San Diego. Bob's background is in engineering and physics. He and his colleagues study the conversion of thermal energy, or heat, to chemical energy, and they develop methods to obtain energy directly from biomass waste streams. Their work involves government, academic, industrial partnerships. Our second speaker will be Stephen Briggs, Professor of Biological Sciences at UC San Diego. Steve's background is in botany and plant pathology, and he has substantial experience working with industry. Steve and his colleagues are using the fact that bacteria can be genetically engineered to produce a variety of organic molecules. They can also make biofuels with bacteria at lower cost and at higher yield than ethanol made with yeast. Our third speaker will be Gregory Mitchell, a research biologist at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, which is part of UC San Diego. Greg is an expert in photosynthesis in the ocean, where microscopic algae, or phytoplankton, produce half the oxygen for the Earth's atmosphere. These microscopic plants are a promising new source of ethanol, as well as biodiesel. Greg's work focuses on optimizing yields of biofuels using algae as a non-traditional aquatic biomass source. He will also illustrate work of collaborators who are exploring the potential of genetic engineering to optimize biofuel production. Our fourth and final speaker will be Justin Steggy, Associate Director of Alternative Fuels at Verenium. Verenium is a recently formed company resulting from a merger of Diversa and Cellunol. Justin and his colleagues are demonstrating strategies for the commercialization of biofuels in a manner that is fully integrated, from agronomics, where cellulosic raw materials are used, through industrial scale fermentation to ethanol with all its attendant plant operations. Justin and his colleagues tap into the extraordinary diversity that exists in nature to develop biotechnology solutions. Now let me introduce our first speaker, Bob Pitalica, who will talk to us about energy from biowaste streams. Bob?
I'd like to talk today about our renewable fuel from biomass waste. This is an interesting collaboration between the state of California, the university, and private industry. This is a jointly funded project from what's called the UC Discovery Program, which is funded by the state and managed by the university. West Biofuels is a industrial partner, and we're working on an investigation of the thermochemical process for the conversion of biomass to mixed alcohol. The process, we start with biomass, but the actual process is based on a gas to liquids technology that actually is fairly old and fairly well developed for conventional feedstocks. It's called Fischer-Tropsch. It uses a catalyst that converts gas into liquids, hydrocarbon liquids. The past focus of this Fischer-Tropsch type of catalyst technology was developed using coal, natural gas, and the types of fuels that come out of this type of a process are diesel and paraffins. The current focus that we're interested in today is based on renewable feedstocks, biomass, even municipal solid waste, and the product is not diesel and paraffins, but actually alcohol and chemicals. Historically, this is a process named after Fischer-Tropsch. Here's Franz Fischer. It was invented in the early part of the 20th century. The process is you take carbon monoxide and hydrogen. We call that syngas. We pass it over a catalyst. This is iron, ruthenium, or cobalt, and that produces hydrocarbon liquids. It was patented in Germany in the early part of the 20th century and commercialized in the 1930s. And if you have any understanding of history of World War II and the lack of petroleum in Germany, they used this process to produce diesel and actually kerosene for aircraft and military uses, but 16,000 barrels a day. So this process was invented in the first half of the 20th century. After World War II, it was translated to the United States and basically using natural gas, but research and use of this approach was researched in the last half of the 20th century in the United States. The main leader in this type of technology is a company called Sasol, South African Synthetic Oil Limited, and for the last half of the 20th century, they have been developing this conversion of, in this case, fossil fuels, either coal or natural gas, into diesel-type products. Major oil companies have been involved in this, Shell, Exxon, and this type of process of converting fossil fuels to liquids has continued over the last 50 years in the 20th century, principally for stranded natural gas. That is natural gas that can't be sent commercially over a pipeline. For example, if you're on an oil platform offshore, you need to be able to, typically you'll flare the gas, but if you can convert it into some transportable product, you can then take that gas, convert it into a liquid, put it on a pipeline or a ship, and send that diesel-type product to further refining. These are the types of processes that you see. These are basically large chemical factories. But you can also do this process for alcohol, changing the catalyst. Now, this is the driver in the United States. This is our consumption of gasoline. We consume 140 billion gallons a year. If we were to take 5% of that and make that a renewable fuel, that would be 7 billion gallons. The production of ethanol in the United States in 2005 was about 4 billion gallons, worldwide 12 billion. So the United States produces now, at that time, 1/3 of the ethanol production in the world. Brazil is the other third, and the remaining world produced the other third. So this was our situation in 2005. One of the drivers in going to renewable fuels was a legislation in the United States called the Energy Policy Act of 2005, which has a renewable fuel requirement for 2006 at 4 billion, which matched our production, but actually to double it by 2012. And in fact, there's some current legislation to increase that by more than up to 30 billion gallons in 20 years. This is the California situation. We consume 15 billion gallons a year of gasoline, almost 1 billion gallons a year of alcohol. We only produce a very small amount within California. There's new construction going on. And for your interest, if we took all the wine in California, took the alcohol out, and tried to burn it, we'd only have 50 million. So it's probably better to leave it in wine. But instead of growing plants, what we're looking at is using biomass waste streams: forest waste, agricultural waste, plant waste, urban green waste. This is the kind of process. Here's our feedstocks. Here's the conventional carbon sources from fossil fuels. This is biomass, renewable fuels. You gasify it in a chemical process to something called syngas. You can use that to make power. You burn the gas in an engine or a furnace. You can actually take it and do this Fischer-Tropsch process to make diesel or wax or these other products. Or you can go through this chemical production. You take the biomass, gasify it, you go through another catalyst, and you make higher order alcohols. The only difference between this Fischer-Tropsch historical process and this manufacturing of mixed alcohols are the catalysts that you use. Here's iron catalyst. This is molybdenum sulfide. This is our research program. We've got a 2-year program, $3 million, funded by West Biofuels, 2/3, the university, 1/3 with state money. We're studying a 5-ton-a-day, 3-stage research reactor. We have 9 professors, a very large program in systems, applied, and basic research. And we're adding graduate students in the next following year. This is the actual chemical process. You take carbon, water with steam, and a gasifier. You make producer gas. You take this producer gas, pass it over another catalyst, make syngas, and you take syngas, pass it over this catalyst, and you make a mixed alcohol. This mixed alcohol is mostly ethanol, but you have these higher order alcohols. You can recycle the methanol, and you can increase the ethanol up to about 75%, and you have these higher order alcohols. You can burn these, you can separate these out, use ethanol in the conventional way that we're using it now, or you can leave these other alcohols in. This is the kind of the summary of our program. This process is based on well-known chemical engineering methods. We need research to improve system integration controls and sensors. It recycles biomass waste streams. There's no net CO2. The potential feedstocks are waste streams: forest waste, agricultural plant waste, urban green waste, and even municipal solid waste. This can be done on a distributed production basis, close to forests where you need forest cleanup, or landfills where the urban green waste, or in agricultural areas where you can accumulate plant waste. And with that, I'll end my talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Our next speaker is Professor Steve Briggs, and he's going to be telling us about uses of genetic engineering with bacteria as